Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we will learn about a Splunk architecture and the components of Splunk. Before you start, please refer my previous videos on Splunk interview questions and more details on Splunk. Let's start. Splunk architecture. Before I talk about how different Splunk components function, let me mention the various stages of data pipeline each component falls under. Okay, so basically this is a typical data flow irrespective of Splunk or any other software. So it is important before we learn about Splunk architecture, we should know about the data stages, different stages in data pipeline. Here if you see there are primary three different stages in Splunk. Okay, you have data input stage, data storage stage, and data searching stage. So this is a typical stages of data pipeline. Okay, now if you see different stages which we just discussed, this is how the data typically goes into different stages. You have input, whereas the input data will be there, and then data will be parsing, event parsing. It will parse the data as per the requirement. Okay, and then it will goes to indexing. This is where the data stores, and it will stay for as per the writing the task. Okay, here you will use a data as per your requirement, and then it will go to search, and you do the searching, and you search the data for visualizations and for reports as per your requirement. All right, so here is the Splunk typical components. Okay, like you have a forwarder, indexer, and search head. So basically forwarder, this is where the stage, data input stage, from where data is coming at the initial stage. So this is where data input with the forwarders, and then at the indexer phase, what happens is data will be parsing and indexing. Okay, and finally it goes to search head to search the data. Now here are the Splunk components which we just learned. Splunk forwarder used data forwarding. Splunk indexer used for parsing and indexing the data. Search head, Splunk search head is a GUI used for searching, analyzing, and reporting. So this is the understanding of three Splunk components, major components that we have in Splunk. Here it is to understand a typical diagram. You have forwarder initially at the first stage. Data will be whatever the data coming from the client machines. Forwarders will be receiving the data. The same will be stored in the indexer, and the data will be searched by using search head. Forwarder, indexer, search head. Okay, now see here is the forwarder. Splunk forwarders. Let's talk about in more detail what forwarders are, and indexer and search head. Let's start with forwarder. Splunk forwarder is a component which you have to use for collecting the logs. Suppose you want to collect logs from remote machines, then you can accomplish that by using a Splunk's remote forwarders, which are independent of the main Splunk instances. Okay, so basically you need to collect the data, collect the logs from the client machines. This is where you are using forwarders. Now let us understand different types of forwarders we have. Okay, we have different types of forwarders in Splunk. Let's see that now. Okay, first is universal forwarder. What is universal forwarder? You can opt for universal forwarder if you want to forward a raw data collected at the source. It is a simple component which perform minimum processing on the incoming data streams before forwarding them to an indexer. So typically, universal forwarder, it perform limited sort of functionalities. Okay, so you can actually read out to understand. And now heavy forwarder, if you see, you can use heavy forwarders and eliminate half of your problems. Okay, because the level of data processing happens at the source itself, because forwarding the data to the indexer. Heavy forwarder typically does parsing and indexing at the source. Also intelligently routes the data to the indexer, saving on bandwidth and storage space. So when a heavy forwarder parses the data, the indexer only needs to handle the indexing segment. So if you observe here, heavy forwarder is performing more activities, and looks like it is giving more advantage than the universal founder. Okay, so if what when you talk about these two, what you also have to understand is that a difference between these two. Okay, so what is the difference between universal founder and heavy founder is that first difference is that universal founder will not have any kind of a graphical user interface. Okay, it will not have any GUI, whereas heavy founder has the GUI. It has the graphical user interface. And the next thing you can say that universal founder will not have the capability of parsing the data, okay, before it's sending it to the indexer. Universal founder will not have the parsing capability, whereas heavy founder will have the parsing capability before sending it to the indexer. Very, very important. And also when you install, okay, heavy founder comes with a different software package. It is not a Splunk software package, okay, whereas heavy founder is a Splunk software package. So these are three major points that you can differentiate them. Okay, you can just tell them these are the difference between universal founder and heavy founder. Okay. All right, let's move on. Heavy founder. So this is a typical diagram of heavy founder. You can see data and it is parsing, indexing, and from where heavy founder is coming, and it is going to the indexer. This is the typical understanding of founder. Okay, we will also look at how it really works when we start doing that. Okay, Splunk indexer. Now we have done with founder. Now let's move to indexer. Okay, now talk about indexer. What is indexer? To understand indexer, before I read out this whatever is given here, to understand after the data, after the logs or data collecting from the client machines will be coming into founder. From then it will come. It will be there in indexer basically. Okay, the major role of indexer is that it will be data will be there till you search the data using search head. Okay, indexer is a Splunk component which you will have to use indexing and storing the data coming from the founder. Splunk instance transforms incoming data into events and stores it into indexers for performing search operations effectively. If you are receiving the data from the universal founder, then the indexer will first parse the data and then index it. Parsing of data done eliminates the unwanted data, but if you are receiving the data from a heavy founder, the indexer will only index the data. This is the use, and this is the understanding of Splunk indexing, Splunk indexer. Okay, now let's move to next component, that is search head. Search head is basically we search the data using this to get the visualizations, to get the reports of that specific data. Search head is the component used for interacting with Splunk. It provides a graphical user interface to users for performing various operations. You can search and query the data stored in the indexer by entering search word, and you will get the expected result. So this is what typical understanding of search head. This is the advanced Splunk architecture with a deployment server management console host. Basically, apart from these three, we have couple more components of Splunk. This is a typical diagram. You can just go through it, understand as it given here. And apart from these things, these three components, we also have other components of Splunk, other component of Splunk. Okay, like you have a license master, you have a cluster master, and you have a deployment server. You also have deployer. I will talk about everything in my future videos. In this video, since we are just talking about these three architecture, I will keep this till here itself. So just to give you an understanding, like license master is basically it will have the daily data volume limit. It will control the daily data volume limit of Splunk. Okay, there is a daily data limit given to the Splunk, so this will has the typically this will control the daily data volume which is given to the Splunk. Okay, and cluster master is something like clustering basically comes into picture when you have a high availability of data. Okay, please remember that. So when you have a high availability of data, clustering will be coming into the picture. From here, like you have let's say you have index clustering, search head clustering. It depends. It depends on that environment you will be working on that. So this is what the typical understanding about clustering. Now deployment server is something to give you an easy understanding. Like I have 10 forwarders and sending the data to a different to indexer, okay, which means I'm sending the file, right, outputs.conf file. So generally I have to go to every forwarder and send the data. So instead of that, using deployment server, I don't have to go to every forwarder and get the data. Using deployment server, I can send the data easily without interacting with every forwarder. It will save my time. It will give a more accurate result also. Now what is deployer? Deployer is something, it will distribute the configuration files, apps to the other searched cluster members, okay, within the searched environment. What deployer will do is it will distribute the apps and the configuration files to the other searched members. So this is the basic understanding I am trying to give you here about these four other components of Splunk. I will in detail we will be sharing in other videos also. Okay, so friends, that's all I have in this video. I hope this will helpful to you and understand the Splunk architecture. Thanks for watching. Happy learning.